The desert stretched endlessly, a cracked wasteland of red rock and bone-dry silence. When the Williams family van rolled off the main highway and onto a dirt track, the world behind them seemed to vanish. Dust followed them like a ghost, rising in long, lazy swirls as the sun beat down on the roof. "GPS says there's a shortcut through here," said Mark, gripping the steering wheel tighter. He was the kind of man who trusted technology more than instinct. His wife, Sarah, wasn't convinced. "It doesn't even look like a road," she muttered, glancing out at the jagged hills rising like teeth from the earth. In the back, their teenage daughter Emma scrolled through her phone, frowning. "No signal," she said. Her younger brother Ben kicked his legs against the seat. 2 hours later, the van coughed, sputtered, and died. Mark slammed the steering wheel. "Damn it! The engine's overheated!" He popped the hood, and a puff of steam hissed into the hot air. The desert swallowed the sound whole. They were stranded. The sun burned lower, turning the sky to molten gold. There was no wind, no movement, only the low, endless hum of silence. The hills around them glowed red in the dying light, their shapes strange and twisted, like hunched figures frozen mid-scream. Emma got out, shielding her eyes. "There's something up there," she said quietly, pointing toward the tallest hill. Mark squinted. For a moment, he thought he saw movement, a flicker of shadow against the stone. Then it was gone. "Probably an animal," he said, but even he didn't sound convinced. They decided to camp for the night. Sarah spread out blankets beside the van, trying to stay calm for the kids. Mark worked on the engine with a flashlight. The night grew cold fast, and the sky filled with stars, millions of them, sharp and bright. Then, somewhere out in the darkness, came the sound of laughter. It was faint at first, childlike, high-pitched, but it didn't sound right. It carried through the still air like a whisper that lingered too long. Ben froze. "Mom," he said. "Did you hear that?" Sarah looked at Mark. His face had gone pale. They listened. Nothing, just wind moving over the rocks. Then something scraped against the van. Mark spun around, flashlight trembling in his hand. "Who's there?" he barked. The beam cut across the dust and metal. Nothing. Just the reflection of his own fear staring back from the windshield. They huddled inside the van for the rest of the night, locked doors and windows tight. But sleep never came easy. At some point, Emma swore she heard footsteps circling outside. Slow, heavy, deliberate, like someone dragging a foot behind them. By morning, the van's windshield was smeared with handprints, small, filthy handprints. Mark's hands shook as he examined them. "Kids," he said, forcing a laugh. "Local kids trying to scare us." But there were no houses, no towns, nothing within 50 miles. Sarah saw something else, etched faintly into the dust on the hood. "Get out." "Mark, we need to leave," she said. "We'll walk if we have to." He looked toward the hills. "If we walk, we might never find the road again." Before they could argue more, Emma screamed. Ben was gone. They found his small footprints leading away from the camp, winding toward the hills. Sarah sobbed as they followed them, calling his name again and again. The trail led up a narrow path between rocks that rose like walls. The air grew heavy with a strange metallic smell, like rust and blood baked in the sun. "Ben!" Mark shouted, his voice echoing back at him. Then they heard it again, the laughter, louder this time, closer. Something darted behind a boulder. Emma caught a glimpse of pale skin, a flash of filthy hair, and eyes that gleamed unnaturally white in the shade. "Dad," she whispered, "someone's watching us." They climbed higher. The path opened into a hollow where the remains of old shacks stood half buried in sand. Rusted signs hung crookedly from posts. U.S. mining site. Closed, 1959. The buildings looked like they'd been abandoned decades ago, but the ground was covered in footprints, bare, uneven, and many. Inside one shack, Mark found a lantern still warm. Someone was living here. Then Sarah saw it, Ben's red hoodie, torn torn and hanging from a nail. She ran toward it, screaming his name, but Mark caught her arm. "Stop!" he hissed. "We don't know who's out here!" That's when the door behind them creaked open. Something stepped out. A man, or at least what used to be one. His face was warped, skin blistered and scarred, teeth too sharp and uneven. His eyes were a milky blue, unfocused, but alive with hunger. Behind him, more shapes emerged from the shadows. Women with twisted limbs. Children with mouths that seemed too wide. They carried crude weapons made from bone and scrap metal. Sarah froze in terror. Mark grabbed a rusted pipe from the floor, holding it out in front of him. "Where's my son?" he demanded. The man grinned. "Family," he rasped. His voice was dry, cracked. "You came home." The others laughed, a horrible gurgling sound that echoed off the stone. They lunged. Mark swung wildly, striking one across the jaw. Sarah dragged Emma out through the back, tripping over the dirt as screams filled the air. She didn't look back. She didn't have to. She could hear Mark shouting, hear the dull thud of metal hitting flesh, then nothing. She and Emma ran down the slope, the sun rising in a blood-red sky. From behind them came the sound of pursuit, footsteps, growls, laughter. Sarah stumbled, cutting her knees on the rock. Emma helped her up. "There's a cave!" Emma shouted, pointing ahead. They ducked inside, pressing themselves against the cold stone. The air reeked of decay. Something moved deeper in the darkness. Sarah raised the flashlight and screamed. Ben was there, sitting cross-legged, eyes wide and unblinking. "Ben, oh God," she cried, rushing to him. But when she reached out, he recoiled. "They said you'd come," he whispered. "They said I belong here now." Behind them, the light caught movement. The creatures had found the cave. Their leader, his face a nightmare of melted skin, stepped forward. "He's one of us," he said. "The hills keep what's theirs." Sarah screamed and swung the flashlight, shattering it against the rock. Darkness swallowed everything. Emma's cries echoed. Then silence. When the rescue team arrived 3 days later, they found the van sun-bleached and empty. No signs of struggle. Just a circle of stones near the campfire and a single word carved into the rock beside it. Home. They searched for weeks, but never found the family. Only rumors remained. Locals said that sometimes at dusk you could see shapes moving in the hills, bent figures watching from the cliffs. Some swore they heard laughter carried by the wind. Others claimed that on certain nights when the moon was full, a boy's voice called out across the desert, asking lost travelers to come closer. And if you listen too long, they say, the hills remember your name.